Good morning, everyone, and welcome to another webinar by Catenda. I'm your host today, Julien Benoit, and I'm the CCO at Catenda. Today we will discuss what API stands for, what is it, and how does it help our users. And we are together today for between 15-20 minutes. As always, a quick reminder about the definition. API means Application Programming Interface. Software have a user interface to be used by a human. That's usually what you can find. As an example, I will just demonstrate that into Bimsync. As you can see, I am a user in front of a computer and I can interact with the software thanks to features that I can access here, and then I can change the feature and jump to another area of the software, etc., etc. All of this is done via a user interface. Now, when it comes to the API, an API allows the communication between computers, which means you authorize a software to access another software, if you like, which means you can automate a lot of tasks, make them very efficient and very fast, and grab a lot of information in a very quick manner. So I will, in the following slides and presentation, I will explain what Catenda and Bimsync have to offer in this API area. So what is the API offer around Bimsync? So there are several areas. The first one we call it the Bimsync API, and the second one is the Bimsync Boost. The Bimsync API, I will show you an example right after, is what could be called a public API. It's an area of the software that people who are authorized can access and use in their project. Bimsync Boost is a specific offering for partners, so it's called a partner API, when they have the need to build software from the bricks that we deliver, or they want to enhance their offer by adding new modules like a viewer, like a BCF engine. Then they will have a specific contract with us, and that's called Bimsync Boost. And lastly, I would say we also have another API called the private API, which is the API that we use internally to make different services communicate together. So a quick example now. If you go to our website, catenda.com, you will find under product 2 pages, one for Bimsync Boost, that's the one I'm displaying now, where you can find some explanation about what it is, what's the intention here, and at the very end you will find a blog post about one of the examples that we were allowed to communicate with, because maybe for you will discover, like, for obvious reasons, we can't always disclose who is using our API into their software. So I won't spend more time explaining this here, but you can find this on catenda.com and read the stories there. Now, when it comes to the API itself, what does that mean? So in this page, under product again, you will find the description of the Bimsync API. You can access different modules. So you have one module called the Viewer 3D, you have the Viewer 2D. So just a reminder, in Bimsync, that's the area that are here. If you have the models displayed in the browser, this is the 3D viewer, and when you switch on the 2D view, let's say on the architectural model, you see this viewer. It's a 2D viewer. So all these elements are available as modules inside our API offering. We also have we also have what's called the core API or the REST API, which is all the rest, I would say, that is not the viewer. It's about the users, the project information, the documents, and the models and data that are included into these models. And lastly, you also have the BCF API, and this is kind of a specific one because we are using the international one, which means our BCF API is completely compliant with any other system using the same API. That's very important for collaboration and interoperability. Sorry. So that's we didn't create a new API. We are really using and building on top of the official one, if you like. So coming back to the presentation. No, sorry. Let me explain also. Yeah, sorry. Back to the presentation. So, what services are available in your API, in our API? So as you saw right now, I displayed several modules of our API offering, and that are broken down into the core, the REST API, the 3D, the 2D, and the BCF. This is visible into the online documentation. So if you go to bimsync.com developers, or if you go into the Bimsync user interface and into help here, you will find developer API at the very bottom, and this leads you to this page. Sorry, and then you need to go 3D API documentation. Here we go. So here you have the online Bimsync API documentation, and it's broken down into the modules. So you have the 3D API, 2D, a widget area, which is that's the little buttons you can put on the viewer, the REST API, and lastly the different versions of the BCF API. So if I stay on here on this page, this is where you can see all the functions and methods that are available for your use inside this API domain. So you can access a lot of things like objects, users, organizations, project members, etc., etc., etc. So there are very little things that you can't do with the API. Not everything that is in Bimsync is into this public API, but I would say 80 to 90% of what you can do in Bimsync is also available in the Bimsync API. This is an area that we always develop, like we push new features into the API, not right away because we always need some feedback from users, but we try to commit to push as much as possible of the Bimsync functions into the public API. So I think now it's time for me to show you some examples of what can be done. So in here, no, sorry, this one. Here is the platform called Bimsync Manager that is not provided by Catenda, but it's provided by Bim42, Simon Moreau, which is a good friend of Catenda, and he is a developer on his part-time, I would say, as a hobby, and he made some time ago this project called Bimsync Manager that is very much a demonstrator of what you can achieve with the API. So let me show you how it works. You need to connect to your account. You will be asked to connect to Bimsync via this interface, and then you can access the project list you are a member of. And if I show you here this project here, so if I click on the link, I will open the project into Bimsync, and then I have some tools on the right hand side. The first one here is interesting. It's a demonstration of kind of quantity takeoff, maybe we can call it that. and related to the viewer. So if you use this tool, you will see that you can pick some categories, like let's say I pick the IFC spaces into the architectural model for the revision 4, and then I can pick some properties. So I will choose category here, or maybe not category, but reference. And you see here that I have a list of different reference, and if I display now the spaces into the viewer and do some tricks like transparency and so forth, I can display now, here we go, I can even hide everything. So now you see all these spaces are available in the viewer, color coded, and each of the spaces are displayed into a list here. So of course it's not perfect, it's not a tool to be used professionally, but as you can see, this is a perfect demonstrator of what you can achieve with the use of the Bimsync API. So you can make a relation between the object and the properties they have. You can display this information with the color code, etc., etc., etc. So that's a perfect example of combined use of the model data and the 3D viewer and some other features such as the widgets. And there are other features in this tool. You can, I think you can use some shared projects. So you can create, if I do this, I think I can create a public link to be shared as a viewer. Yeah, it takes some time on this demo versions. And you have also the ability to put some JSON configuration to update your project. So everything is documented. You have some help to help you out. Again, it's only a demonstration. It's not really intended to be used professionally, so be aware of that. And we as Catenda don't really support this effort. We encourage this effort. We really appreciate the work, but we can't really support what's happening here. So another example I can demonstrate now is Catenda BOS, and this would be an example of Boost integration. Of course, this software is provided by Catenda, but it could be provided by someone else. It would be the same. So in this software, I won't spend too much time explaining it, but as you will see, when I access one of the projects, you will recognize at some point some key elements coming from Bimsync. So if you display the model here, you will see that this is the Bimsync viewer, right? I think we can agree that that's the one. And then if you display information in the 2D viewer, you will recognize also the 2D viewer coming from Bimsync. So this is a perfect example of an integration from, I would say, a Boost partner that has created its own platform, its own software, and you don't even know it's provided by Catenda here, but this is the viewer that they are using with the 2D and the 3D view. And there are some features that are different from the vanilla viewers, like the ability to crop the view on a room and stuff like that. So you can implement more stuff thanks to the API that is available in the regular Bimsync interface. Among other things, there's also this issue management here, and that is built on top of the BCF engine. So that's 3 bricks of the Bimsync API that are available in this tool, for instance. So several software on the market are using our offering, our Boost offering, but of course we don't communicate really about this, so I guess you will understand the reason why. Back to my presentation. So services available in our API, I think we covered that. And of course, when you have an API agreement with us, either by your contract or a specific contract, like with Boost, you can pick what module you want to use. You can combine them all, which means you can have a combination between the API, the 3D and the 2D. You can do whatever you like to build your tool. So now the big question, what do you need to benefit from our API? So let's be clear. This is a job to build something on top of an API. As much as we make efforts to clearly document what we provide, still it can be a hobby, but if you want to build a professional solution to be used on live and real projects, you need to be accompanied by professionals, like professional developers, people who've done that before. This will save you a lot of time because they will go straight to the solution and do the job. So it's really important for everyone to understand that, even though we are making efforts to make the documentation and access to the API as easy as possible, it's still not a job you can wing by the weekend. You can do some testing, you can try some stuff, but still, when you want to land a serious tool on top of our API, you need to dedicate professionals to do that. As a help, we also have an example. So you see we have a GitHub. If I click on this link, you can search, I think, Bimsync into GitHub, you will find it. It's our developer, the engineering team in Catenda, shared some API demo and example. So you have a code sample for you to learn how to implement our API solution. So I think it's a very good idea to start looking at it, because as always with an API, you have the documentation and you have the use of the documentation, which means sometimes it's very subtle, but you need to adjust parameters, and it's not always easy to give all that knowledge into a documentation format. So this is why we have this Bimsync API demo. And I think also that the Beamsync Manager code is also available on GitHub. So you can probably learn from that. So really another message here, you really need to spend some time investigating what you want to do and try to be helped by professionals in development, like people who did that before. Also, it's worth mentioning, because I didn't put a slide about this here, that thanks to the Revit plugin, we also have a Dynamo package that is available on request. And this Dynamo package will allow you to try out some of the API inside this Dynamo script. So you can do some mockups and try out what can be done with the Bimsync API. So that's all for today. Please contact me or contact us if you have any question regarding our API offering, either the Bimsync API or Bimsync Boost. I hope you enjoyed the time with me today, and I will see you in the next one. Thank you and have a good day. Bye.